This episode is brought to you by Farmers Insurance.
Russian forces repel a second Ukrainian attack on the Crimean Bridge. That's shortly after Moscow's MOD said air defenses shot down 2 Ukrainian missiles in the first assault and activated a smoke screen to protect the area. ECOWAS member Cabo Verde speaks out against the bloc's potential military intervention in Niger, echoing the overall sentiment in the country, with locals coming out in support of the coup government.
I'm ready to die for my country, but they have no shame. Now that we want to take our independence, since the coup d'etat, they've been threatening us and we will answer them. We will do it until they leave our country.
More on Niger as anti-French sentiment grows beyond the country's borders, with West and Central African countries calling for abolition of the French-backed CFA franc. And a UK court sentences a former top primary school teacher to 12 years in prison for possessing thousands of illicit images of Indian children who he abused online. All right,
0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds. Jaguar delivers that thrill every day. The F-Pace, how Jaguar makes an SUV.
Will Turkey ratify Sweden's NATO membership? Stockholm says it can't fulfill all Ankara's demands. As the bloc's membership requires unanimous approval, what would make Turkey change its mind? And what does all of this mean for NATO's future? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Mohammed Jamjoom. One of the many fallouts of Russia's invasion of Ukraine has been that previously neutral Nordic countries.
That's volume at 14. Let's get some volume.
So setting off here in the 2023 Integra. So the first thing you notice about this, well, you have a really nice low seating position to drive. So I already did drive this on track this morning, and so now here in the afternoon I'm driving it on the street. And on the track it was very, very impressive, and I'll talk more about that here in a little bit. But first thing on the road here that you notice is the CT4V. I've already really liked the regular V series version. The CT4 is a really nice little car in my opinion. You have great visibility, A-pillars aren't too thick. It just feels nice and compact, and that gives it this agile feeling as well. And the one thing you don't get in the regular V-Series, though, is the nice burble from this twin-turbo V6, since, the V-Series just runs a turbo 4-cylinder. And so even here in the Tour mode, it still has a nice little burble to it, although there is a variable exhaust, and so you can crank up that engine sound and have the exhaust get a lot louder whenever you go up into those track modes and stuff. But you don't even really need to be in track mode. You can just cruise around and just give it a quick little... You can hear it comes to life, and it gets nice and loud pretty quickly. But this 10-speed auto so far has been really smooth. It's great on track too. It's very snappy with its shifts, and it's very, very responsive. It's always in the right gear. But just whenever you're cruising around, it's just a very nice daily driver type of vehicle as well. I mean, especially here in Tour mode, this has the Magnetic Ride Control 4.0, the newest version. It's the fastest reacting adaptive suspension out there. It adapts about 1,000 times per second to the road conditions and stuff. So constantly changing and giving you as smooth a ride as you possibly can have for this type of a vehicle. And it's really nice. I mean, we aren't on any rough roads now. These roads are pretty well maintained. But so far, I haven't had any complaints with the ride. It's really good. It's also pretty quiet in here too, even though we're on the Mission Pilot Sport 4S tires and everything. Also, all the driver inputs lights here in the CT4V Black Mirror are also really nice. So everything is just so well dialed in. I've always appreciated how responsive Cadillacs have always felt to me, but nice little tip in for the gas here in the Tour mode, and then it does still feel nice and responsive, nice meaty power from those twin turbos too, and maybe just dip into it a little bit. And it's also pretty easy to be smooth with the brakes. This is also one of the few vehicles that actually lets you change the brake feeling in the My modes and the V modes and stuff. So that's pretty wild too. So if you want a softer brake or a stiffer brake, you can have that as well, which is pretty crazy that you have that much customization. So you can custom tailor this car exactly to how you want it to feel, but it all feels really good. Also, the steering in Tour mode actually feels perfectly weighted to me. You can go for the heavier modes if you want, but I think in Tour mode here, it's not like it's super light or anything. It just has a nice substantial feel to it still, without feeling like it's really trying super hard to be super heavy steering or anything. Right now, the corners are very mild and sweeping, so clearly isn't going to get even close to sampling the performance and the handling of this vehicle. But whenever we were on track, it was really impressive. So you have 255 wide Michelin Pilot Sport 4S in the front and 275s in the rear, and they grip very, very well. Now, of course, we were doing lots of track lapping, and so whenever you're, on those tires for a good while, they do get a little bit greasy. Towards the end, it was a little more tail happy, but in those early laps, whenever those tires were fresh, I mean, it was really grippy, and even whenever it would start getting a little greasier, it was really good still, and very progressive with the way that it was able to kind of rein it in. And with the PTM modes, you can dial in exactly how much or how little play you want in that back end. But I just found it to be pretty friendly. I mean, obviously, if you really wanted to go crazy, you could easily drift this thing and slide it around like crazy. But if you actually were trying to do quick laps, it was able to be right there with you. It was very helpful with the stability control to try and keep you in check a little bit. But overall, to me, it felt similar to the ATS-V by a good bit. It just had a little bit more stability than the ATS-V, a little bit more sharpness, I think, to the front end, a little bit as well. They made some small little changes. Of course, the CT4 is a completely different car than the ATS, but as far as the bracing and stuff, they added a bunch of other undercarriage braces and stuff to firm everything up here. So it's going to feel a little bit tighter than the ATS-V for sure. But out on the track and stuff, as far as driving, since you have very similar engine, similar power delivery, similar wheelbase, and all those types of things, it's going to feel pretty similar, at least to me, to the ATS-V. It's just like ATS-V with then some, just even better. But yeah, I mean, so even on these, gentle corners, though, it just feels really nice to just drive because it just feels so capable, so competent. But the really tight corners are especially where the CT4V shines, because the smaller wheelbase, the smaller dimensions versus when you go with the CT5V and its heavier weight and stuff, having a lighter weight here, really helps whenever you are in a tight back room. Speaking of that weight, by the way, they actually, even though this is a little bit of a bigger vehicle and does have a lot, like I said, the extra bracing and the nicer tech, nicer digital gauges, things like that you didn't have in the ATS-V, it still only gained 100 pounds over the ATS-V. So it's about 3,900 pounds exactly for an automatic. Manual is like 3,860, I believe they said. So still a very light vehicle, and that's one of the really great things about this. But I'm going to go ahead and put it into the V mode, and so that's going to put everything in its aggressive setting aside from the stability control. Let's turn down onto this back road here and see how it does. Here we go. All right, it pulls really nicely. I was loving those crackles and pops. It sounds really, really good. So yeah, you're still running an enhanced version of the 3.6 liter twin turbo V6 from the ATS-V, but it has titanium connecting rods now in the manuals, as well as a revised electronic engine management system, and also a revised intake to help give it that extra power. And so 472 horsepower, 445 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 for the 10-speed auto is 3.9 seconds. It's 4.1 for the manual. And so yeah, I mean, it pulls itself really, really well. I'm going to try out some manual shifts here. See how that does. Because they did, customize this manual.
Let's check the speakerphone.
Downshifts are pretty quick.
Let's roll up another down.
And upshifts are pretty good too, man. I love that exhaust. Let's try that with the window down.
Yeah, what time you guys close tonight?
We're 24 hours.
Okay, thanks a lot. Gotta love New York City.
Sounds good. I could even go for a little bit louder, but honestly, for a luxury sports sedan, I think it's really good. It really fills the cabin nicely as well. I believe there might be a little bit of assistance, from the speakers, but I mean, you get so much, out of the exhaust itself. So it's great. You have a blend of both. I'm all for, the more sound, the better, especially whenever you're up in the more aggressive modes. So, but I mean, the Verbals. I love the Verbals. And yeah, this manual shifting is much better. I had a not so great experience in the manual shifting of the regular CT4V series and CT5V series, and so this actually feels a lot better for the 10-speed auto. So I'm still a manual lover. Keep the manuals alive. Buy the manual if it works with your commute and what you want in your sports sedan. But if you do go for the auto though, I think it's actually pretty fun to play around with. Oh man, this thing really pulls nicely though. It feels great. It's one of those cars that feels like it's kind of in the sweet spot of its power. It's not bonkers crazy overboard, but it definitely does not feel slow either. It just feels really stout and like all the power that you need on the street, to be totally honest. I mean, you're never gonna find yourself wanting for power, I don't think, unless you're a complete speed junkie. But I think for any kind of sane, legal, spirited driving on a public road, I think that this is going to have plenty of performance and then some. But yeah, I'm definitely having a lot more fun with these manual paddles, which are these nice magnesium paddles too. I love how the front end lifts up a little bit too, even though we are in the stiffer track mode here for the suspension. Still has a little bit of drama to it, which I do love having that kind of drama. It gives you a little bit of a thrill, and it kind of bangs off the shifts a little bit. Honestly, I kind of wish it was even a little bit rougher in the track mode, but I know you need to be smooth in track mode. Maybe we'll try out the sport mode and see how that does here. So I kind of turned some of the stuff down a little bit, and even the engine sound is down a little bit. Yeah, that's just as snappy with everything though. It feels really good in that mode as well. But man, this motor is a gem. It sounds great, it's really strong, but I think that's the one huge upgrade I'm noticing, in addition to, of course, the CT4 being a much nicer car than the ATS, just as far as interior and just everything being newer. But I think that the exhaust is the one thing that I never was like, oh, the exhaust sounds amazing in the ATS-V. And this, I actually really love the way the exhaust sounds. Because I think having those burbles and the crackles and pops, it adds more of that drama and excitement. If you're buying a performance vehicle, chances are you want that kind of stuff. So I love that they put that in here for the CT4V Blackbang. Honestly though, I think another thing I'm really impressed by is even with the suspension in its stiffest mode, the brake feel being in its stiffest mode and everything, it's like something I could totally daily drive it in the maxed out V mode all the time. Aside from having the PTM in its aggressive setting, it's nice having stability control for sure. But everything else, it's not beating me up. Now we'll have to see on more pothole-filled roads, if it really is much rougher. But I think the great thing with the magnetic ride control is that it's always done such a good job of balancing good ride quality and still having fantastic handling. And of course, this new generation version isn't going to be worse. It's going to be even better. So I think if you have a vehicle, if you have experience with magnetic ride control, this new version should just be even better and just be a nice upgrade here. But okay, so there's a little bit of like divots in the road there, and you can feel that it's stiff. I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit, but it's not a harsh bouncing around. It's just, you can tell that it's set up a little bit stiffer right now. But the great thing is, I can go in and change that V mode, and then I can swap the suspension and dial this all the way back so I can have nice soft suspension, have everything else nice and crazy. And you can have it set up exactly how you want, which is just the best. I love that all these vehicles have these drive modes now, but I mean, Cadillac really gives you a lot of customization. A lot have like one mode, and this does have that My mode, but then having that V mode right there on the steering wheel, so you just pop that, it takes a split second, hit the button, and you immediately have exactly the settings you want for any kind of sportier driving or anything. I love that they have a button here on the wheel. It's so cool, have the rocker on the steering wheel as well for PTM, so you don't have to do any kind of, fancy button pressing like you're entering a cheat code in order to get the PTM, and this, it's very simple to mess with. But yeah, honestly, it's something you don't even need to mess with because, again, stability control is so well programmed, I think, in this vehicle that unless you are doing actual track driving, you'll probably never even mess with that switch, honestly, or need to at least. Going over other little minor bumps and stuff, it's just nice and pretty buttery smooth. Again, for a vehicle in this segment, again, whenever we're talking about stuff like a BMW M2, which isn't really a close competitor since that's, a two-door, but the four-door stuff like the CLA, the A45s, that kind of stuff, it's just, always a little bit rougher. It feels a little cheaper inside. This actually feels like a proper sports sedan still, not like some, souped-up hot hatch. This just seems like it has better bones, and so I think it just means you can have a smoother ride than when you get into those types of vehicles, most likely. Now, I reviewed an M2, have not done the new CLA or anything like that to directly compare. Same thing, I haven't driven the new RS3 to compare those, but in my previous experiences with those older generations of those models, they were a lot rougher, and I think that this, being a little bit smoother probably is going to, be something you appreciate if you're a daily driving vehicle like this. Another acceleration. How it gets a little bit squirrely on you, you still know you're in a rear-wheel drive vehicle. The black ones, by the way, only come in rear-wheel drive. I know that with the regular V's you can get the all-wheel drive, but here in the black wings, rear-wheel drive only, and that's the way I think it should be because it gives you that extra driver involvement, the extra fun, the extra little edge, putting the power down in the back. But it really puts the power down very, very well. It's pretty rare that the tires are overwhelmed here, and again, because you have the really well programmed stability control, it never feels too sketchy or anything. It will rein you in unless you want to just turn everything off. Another thing I'm really appreciating about the CT4V Blackwing is the steering feel actually feels really nice too, in addition to, again, just the weight being really nice whenever you're in that tour mode or in any of the modes there, it's good. But I'm feeling a lot through the wheel here, even though it is, electric power steering. I mean, it still actually, I don't know, I feel like I'm getting a good amount of communication from the wheel, and I just can feel, the grooves on the road a little bit better, all those vibrations and stuff. It just feels like you're more connected in this vehicle than the average, sports sedan, which, usually tries to isolate some of that stuff a little bit more. This feels a little more raw, which I really like. I also really love how, even though I'm in the V mode for the engine and the transmission, it's not forcing me to be sitting at 5,000 RPMs all the time. So a lot of other vehicles, when you put them up in that sport mode, the transmission gets really hyperactive and it's constantly wanting to be razor sharp. And in this, it's very responsive. I just stomp on it and it immediately responds, but it doesn't force me to be sitting at, like I said, super high RPMs. And so once you do chill out, you can still have the great sounding loud exhaust and all that kind of stuff in that track transmission and engine mode, but still have the ability to coast around at 2,500 RPMs and not be getting 5 miles to the gallon on your whole drive. So it's kind of nice how they set that up. Obviously, you could go into the manual mode and kind of mess with that stuff for yourself if you'd like as well. But I just like how it still allows you to kind of chill out a little bit even when you are in those more aggressive engine settings. But speaking of manual mode, I think manual mode is one of the things I'm enjoying the most about the automatic CT4V Blackwing. Actually, it's because the automatic gives you a bunch of extra safety tech as well, and so whenever you get all that extra safety tech, that adds into that pricing, and so that's why it's more expensive there. So just one little thing to note is that you don't see sticker shock like, wow, I have to pay $3,000 for an automatic. You do get some other features to go along with that. So all right, so now we're in the manual transmission CT4V Blackwing, and it feels really good too. So the one thing I love is this transmission is really nice and notchy and just feels really good to use. It's the Tremec TR6060, and you also have a little bit more spacing between the gears. So it also does have active rev match and no lift shifting. So the active rev match you do have to turn on every single time. Whenever you are full throttle here, it'll like cut the fuel a little bit there just to keep the torque at a reasonable level. But it works, and works really well. I have it in the highway drive assist mode, which is the adaptive cruise control with lane keeping assist, and this system, so if you've watched any other Kia and Hyundai reviews in the past few years, the highway drive assist system isn't one of the best systems out there in my opinion. It has let me down on several occasions where it doesn't hold the lane, and it's a little tricky to tell when it's actually...
This is the famous Jaguar XJ220 supercar from Jaguar in the Hot Wheels Speed Machine series of premium collectible vehicles. I say premium because they cost more, although I'm not sure why. The build quality isn't any better than a standard $1 Hot Wheels. This costs almost 3 times as much as a standard Hot Wheels, although I should note that the price of standard regular Hot Wheels has gone up. From 97 cents to $1. It conquered 22 volcanoes, and it has a Jaguar on the side of it, not a real one. It's a nice looking car, it has fancy wheels, but it still has plastic tires and a plastic bottom. Worth the extra price? You decide. It is cheaper than the real thing though.
In Africa, in this kind of situation. But then some experts are saying that it could take weeks or even months before we see,
That's volume at 14. Let's get some volume.
So setting off here in the 2023 Integra. So the first thing you notice about this, well, you have a really nice low city. Probably hear the little sound that's emitted under 25 miles per hour. That's a federally mandated thing for all electric vehicles. But this has a very cool futuristic little sound whenever it's whirring around. Other things to notice about the GV60, obviously being an electric vehicle, you have all those key characteristics of the instant power, the instant response. There's no shifting, there's no waiting around for an engine or anything. It's immediate power, full torque from the second you put your foot down. I also think that the visibility here is pretty good in the GV60. You have pretty thin A-pillars. You are sitting up higher than you might be expecting again as well to further reinforce that crossover vibe here that you do get with this. And so that's pretty cool because it means you have a really good view forward. The hood drops down really nicely. And the view out of the back is the most interesting part of the visibility because as you can see, it does a trick that you do also have a ton of cameras. You have a forward-facing camera, backup camera, of course. You also have side cameras for a full 360 view, and even when you turn on your turn signal. So we're going to hit that here and see how it does. Turning on to this back ride. Boost, ready, here we go. Wow, it's actually chirping the tires. Ooh, man, oh man. Wow, that was fast. Wow, man. Wow. Man. Woo, this thing flies. Man. Wow, so here in the GV60 Performance, you have more performance than even the Ioniq 5 and the EV6 offer you. So with that overboost mode, you have 483 horsepower, 516 pound-feet of torque, and 0 to 60 in that boost mode is 3.7 seconds. Yes, this thing has supercar acceleration, and it's a 12.2 second quarter mile time at like 112 mile per hour for the trap speed. I mean, it is properly fast. Now, after that 10-second burst, you'll have about 429 horsepower and 446 pound-feet of torque normally, which is still even way more power than what you get in the Ioniq 5 and the EV6. Now, that's for only this performance version. If you go for the lower advanced trim, you'll have, I believe it's like 314 horsepower in that, and then you'll have the same 446 pound-feet of torque. So same torque, should feel pretty similar around town. It's just whenever you put your foot into it where you get the extra power here of the advanced version. But we'll do another quick little acceleration, not in boost mode, just to do a little bit of scientific comparison. Still very impressive. It just doesn't, it's not quite as frantic, but wow, it's so cool you have a boost mode too. It's steering wheel mounted. It's like hitting the NOS button here, and it's so cool that you have that. And also, I love the sounds. There's a bunch of different sounds. We'll try out a few of the others here in a couple of minutes, but there's a bunch of sounds you can have. This is the futuristic one I'm using currently. There's a couple of others. There's also an option to turn them off if you don't like the sound thing, and so there's even a mode you can custom blend your own sound as far as how it responds to the pedal and also what it sounds like and how it blends all the different sounds. Super cool that you do so much customization. But anyway, we're coming up some corners here. Let's see how the GV60 handles. So we have 255 wide tires on these 21-inch wheels, but they're only Primacy all-season tires. So I was kind of mid-corner and gave it a little bit of gas, which obviously is going to provoke understeer. But, otherwise, So, you know, it still has some lean to it. I think it's still set up, you know, this isn't like the sport version. I'm hoping they do a sport version using the mechanicals from the Ioniq 5N and the Kia EV6 GT. But, I mean, it's really nice and flat though otherwise, and, you know, I had no problem, you know, going around those corners, and it doesn't feel too heavy either, considering this thing weighs 4,862 pounds, according to Car and Driver. So, you know, pretty weighty, but you do have an electronic limited slip differential in the rear there, and it's a rear bias setup, and so that should help you to have, you know, yeah, it does have a little bit more of a neutral feeling to it. It's just that, again, these tires immediately get overwhelmed with this much weight and this kind of performance and power that it just, you know, you find the limits very early on in this thing. So that's just one thing you're gonna have to, you know, be cognizant of, and you're gonna have to, you know, drive this with that, you know, I guess preparedness and caution, knowing that, you know, the tires are a limiting factor. But I would love to try one of these things out with some proper summer performance tires on it, which, by the way, is not an option, unfortunately. I really wish it was, but man, oh man, this thing on some good tires, I'd be very curious to see just how well it does. But jeez, this it flies. It is very, very impressive. Right up there, you know, just as impressive as any other very fast electric vehicle. You know, Tesla Model 3 performance. You know, I reviewed one of those several years ago. Just every bit as, you know, impressive as that. Now, I think that might handle a little bit better than this. It's been many years since I drove that, admittedly. But obviously, the higher crossover position here is going to, you know, make this feel a little less athletic, but it still feels great. Steering also has a little bit of a nice weightedness to it in sport mode here, and I mean, it all feels very, you know, flat and capable with those adaptive dampers, especially. I think that really helps out to make this feel a good bit better. And yeah, I'm just really enjoying the way this thing drives. But I love it. Also, the way it's tuned, even in the sport mode, it really ramps up power nice and fast. Oh, it's addictive. I just want to like floor this thing everywhere I go. Oh, it's so much fun. Another thing that's also very fast is the recharge time. So moving on from the acceleration to how this battery, it's a 77.4 kilowatt hour battery pack, and it can do a recharge from 10% to 80% in just 18 minutes, which is right up there with the best EVs here in the year 2022. I mean, that is super fast. Like a Porsche Taycan does those types of recharging times. It'll be way faster than like a Mach-E GT or you know, like the Volvo XC40 Recharge, even the BMW i4 M40 M50i. That thing still isn't going to be able to charge as fast as this does. Here we go. Another boost mode. Boost ready. Here we go.
The time is 2:12 a.m.
I love the wheel spin. That makes it even more dramatic. But man, whoo, yeah, you feel like you are on, you know, roller coaster, a modern roller coaster ride, you know, where it just launches you. It's like, you know, Space Mountain or something with just the power. It's probably even faster than that, honestly, but it's just like, it's crazy how it just feels so impressive, and it's so much that it overwhelms those tires. And I also think it would feel even faster if you had, again, those summer tires to grip better and not give you that wheel spin. Even though I love the wheel spin and it's fun, without that, it would probably rip your head off even more. So crazy. But anyway, let's listen to these sounds here. This is G-Engine. Pretty cool. I like that. E-motors, the next one we'll try here. Oh, and sorry about my camera gear flying around back here making a bunch of noise, but that sounds pretty cool as well. Honestly, I think it's my favorite because, you know, the whole thing with EVs is you're supposed to be driving something futuristic, and so I think that, you know, having a futuristic soundtrack to that really fits. And you can also, by the way, change how much volume you have for each of those modes as well. So if you want to, you know, knock it down and have it not be so intense with these sounds, you can still have some of the sound, but just a little bit less of it too. So I love Genesis is one of the best with letting you customize everything. Every single little setting has a million different customizations to it, and it's one of these vehicles where I think you really enjoy it more than even the average vehicle, just because you can get everything exactly the way you like it and change things you never thought could be changed in another vehicle in the past. It's just crazy how much stuff they let you change in this vehicle. Other things though to mention, brakes. Another thing very important when you're talking about a vehicle this fast. So you have nice large brakes, and they have good response to them. Now, they're not super grabby, you know, so it's nice, I think, because it means you have a nice, easy ramp up, so, you know, it's easy to be smooth with them. But Oh yeah, this thing, it really is crying out for better tires. You would think the performance version would maybe have even like, do the Pilot Sport all-season tire or something. It doesn't have to be a summer tire, but even the Sport all-season would be a lot better than this Primacy Touring all-season, I think. I'm not sure why they chose this tire, because the all-season Pilot Sport is a fantastic tire and still has great capabilities in all weather. But anyway, it still handles really, really well. Overall, though, I'm just really impressed with the way this thing drives. And we're also on this road that generates a lot of road noise, and you hear basically none of it. All you're hearing is this sound that I have turned on, and then the air conditioning blower going. That's it. It is so quiet in here, and that'll really provide a great soundstage for this Bang & Olufsen 17-speaker stereo, which I'm excited to try out here during my week with the Genesis. And now we're about to hit some potholes here, and soaks up really well for 21-inch wheels too. I mean, it's really, I think, doing a great job soaking up these bumps. And that's probably the tires, which also help a little bit here, not being super sporty tires. But yeah, no, I think it is doing really nice. Gives you a very luxury appropriate ride. And yeah, I think that it just allows this vehicle to still continue to feel very comfortable even if the road isn't super smooth. So I've turned down these sound design things so that it's not quite as loud here while I'm talking. But one other thing I do want to mention here is that you do have these regeneration mode paddles. So they look like paddle shifters, but here in the Genesis GV60, like how in the iX 5, you have the same feature where you have these paddles. You can actually amp up the regeneration for the braking, so that if you want to have basically one pedal driving, it has that one pedal mode. But you also, if you want to have a blend or you want to change it up on the fly, you can change it. So if you're going down a big hill, crank it up. Otherwise, let it coast around or whatever it is you want to do. And you can do it just changing these paddles immediately. And again, more customization, and something that the Mach-E's, for example, don't give you. Even in the GTs, you don't have any kind of way to change the regenerative braking. It's just one pedal in that vehicle or nothing. I love having the paddle shifters. It's a really nice sporty touch, especially for EV enthusiasts and people who are driving enthusiasts that like playing around with that kind of stuff. It's great that they have that here. And again, it's something you can completely ignore and never touch if you don't want to. You can still allow this to coast just like any other normal vehicle. But if you want to be able, in a normal mode, it definitely smooths out the power delivery. So if you want the most impressive power and you floor this in normal mode, you might be like, oh, that doesn't feel as fast as you made it seem. Put it in sport mode, and that's the way to make it feel punchier and more responsive to the gas. But then again, especially putting it in that boost mode really, makes this thing fly, and that's going to be the way that you're going to get the most wow factor out of this vehicle. But now we're out on the highway here in the GV60, and cruising here about 65 miles per hour. Nice and quiet. A little bit of wind noise, a little bit of a windier day here, but nice and quiet. We got a car passing there. I think that's pretty good for this segment. And another thing, so I have the adaptive cruise control system on. It has the highway drive assist function, which is really advanced, and it has a lane keeping assist system. Now it is a hands-on system, so that is one area where it's a little bit behind some of the best competitors. So like Ford with the Mach-E has Blue Cruise, which is actually hands-free. Also Cadillac offers Super Cruise in the Lyriq that's now coming out. So there are a few others that are going to be doing a little bit of a better job. But compared to like the Teslas and stuff that also force you to have your hands on the wheel, this is doing a pretty good job so far. And they say it has a lane changing function, but so far it's not doing any kind of automated lane changes for me or anything, at least not like how a Super Cruise system will do them. But anyway, one thing that is doing very well though is going around corners. So previously with other Hyundais, Genesis, and Kias with this highway drive assist function, it hasn't always been the best with reliably doing steering assistance, but so far here in this, it's doing a pretty good job here. So I'm kind of just hovering my hand on the wheel here. It's telling me to keep my hands on the wheel, but I'm just giving a little bit of extra torque. But it's doing a better job here than I've experienced in past highway drive assist vehicles. In addition to the highway drive assist technology, you do have all the other normal safety tech as well. So blind spot monitoring, automatic emergency braking, rear cross traffic alert, all those types of things. Like I said, the camera and the side mirrors to give you a view of your blind spot when you have your turn signal on. So many great features as far as all that stuff goes. You also have it so you can do the intelligent parking thing. And, all right, so I've been driving the GV60 Performance here for a week now, and I really have loved this thing. It is so good, and Cliff Notes, it's basically perfect in my opinion, and I think it's actually probably my new favorite electric vehicle that I've tested. I mean, really, really impressive. I haven't done some of the crazier stuff out there, but this is one of the higher performing ones I've tested. But just the whole GV60 in general, beyond just the performance aspect, it just all feels so good. The ride quality is just so good. The luxury in here, the refinement, the regeneration, how easy it is to drive, just the way everything's calibrated and set up, the way that it handles. Everything about this is just so, so good. And yes, whenever you're pushing it on a tight back road, the weight is going to be apparent, which goes for basically any other electric vehicle out there. But aside from that, and even if you want to upgrade tires on this, to make it, much better handling, you totally could. But even with these all seasons, it's just such a good driving vehicle. I loved it. Beth was actually authorized to drive this one this week as well. She loved it as well. And, yeah, it's just a very, very impressive thing. So, a couple things to mention here. First off, my efficiency. So we've driven this vehicle 168 miles here over the week, and our average efficiency here was 3 miles per kilowatt hour. So I haven't reviewed anything else that's this high performing yet. So, as far as comparing that to others, it's kind of hard to compare. But I believe, in the Mach-E with its slower versions, I was getting, like 3.3, something like that. And I think the Volvo was a little bit lower. So I mean, I'd say this is pretty much on par with the rest. As far as the actual MPGe ratings from the EPA, it's rated at 97 MPGe in the city, 82 on the highway, and 90 combined. And you'll find that it's not the most efficient out there. The advanced version is actually a little bit more efficient, of course, with its less power. And that one actually is kind of above par. I believe that actually manages to get over 100 MPGe. But this is still very solid. Again, considering the performance, I think the efficiency is very good. And along with that solid efficiency, the other thing I have to mention is the range. So these are rated at 235 miles of range for the performance version. It's, I believe, in the 250s for the advanced, but 235 claimed here for this one. But I actually did charge it to 100% on multiple occasions, and it was quoting me between 244 and 245 miles on a full charge. Now that, guessometer will depend on your driving style and, a bunch of different factors, the weather and all of that. So your mileage will vary, but, in summer conditions here, running the air conditioning and all that, I've been seeing over that, estimated range figure, and even I'm at 97% charge right now, and it's still telling me I have 239 miles of driving, again, beyond the 235 that it's rated at with a full 100% charge. So I do think this can actually overperform those range estimates as well. And again, I haven't been driving this thing lightly either. So I mean, it's calculating this range figure based on me hammering on this thing and really, exploiting that performance, hitting the boost button. So I think that, that's another thing that's just very, very impressive is that, you are going to probably even get better range than they actually quote you. So that's a nice little extra surprise too. And then really the last thing to talk about here is the pricing and how it compares to its competition. And like usual with Genesis, they have priced this very well to make it very competitive so that it undercuts basically everything it's competing with, while again giving a top-notch product that I feel, honestly, it feels like they're giving 110% with the Genesis versus some of the others that might be good, but they don't go the extra mile with the cool little toys like the spinning shifter you have here and the extra options for interior colors and exterior colors and things like that the others, just want to give you 3 different versions of gray and maybe a red and a black and a white, and that's about it. I love that this really gives you a lot of really exciting color options and stuff. But anyway, as far as how it's priced, so if you go for a regular advanced trim of the GV60, which again has less performance but still has all-wheel drive and still is fully loaded, by the way, and those run just $60,000 including destination. As far as the advanced trim goes, I mean, you look at other normal ordinary EVs that have similar amounts of power, like a Volvo XC40 Recharge is going to run you about the same 60 with way less interior tech, a little bit less space as well as far as backseat space goes and things like that. I feel like this is just miles better than that Volvo, even in the less powerful version. Even though the Volvo has a little bit more horsepower, but this actually has more torque than the Volvo will. So that's kind of a wash in my opinion. But you also look at like the newest stuff coming out, like the Mercedes EQB that's going to get a regular GV60 advanced, and they also have less. Just honestly crush its competitors currently. There's not a lot of competitors out there, but just crushing most of them. And so whenever you get into the performance stuff here, like this one as tested with the performance again, and you just have the one upcharge of the color being a few $100 extra. But this one's about $69,000 as tested. And even that $69,000 price point, I mean, it's almost keeping with that Mach-E versus this being a luxury branded vehicle, way more luxurious, with the actual leather, the cooled seats, which the
All right, so let's hit Explore. Now here's the products. You got 3 different Hypercubes. You got the Hypercube Nano, That's the smallest one. That's going to run you 159 bucks. Then you got the Hypercube 10. That one is a little bit bigger. That's 279 bucks. Then you got the big boy, the Hypercube 15. That one's going to run you 450 bucks. All right, so let's start off with the Hypercube Nano. All right, so what is it? It's an ultra-chromatic infinity art in a sleek portable form. The Hypercube Nano is a hyperluminous infinity mirror art piece that will transport you to a higher dimension. Engineered to perfection and crafted from the highest quality components, Hypercube Nano Infinity Cubes are sturdy and made to last. As far as the features, you got advanced sound reactivity, scratch-proof acrylic mirrors, 95 unique patterns in 3 modes, USB-C power for maximum portability, the highest quality LEDs, so you got 50,000 plus hour lifetime, and the standards included. All right, so here's the dimensions, 5.5 by 5.5 by 5.5. Let's see anything else. Okay, now these are also syncable, so you can sync all the different size cubes together. Control them from the app, customize all of the features. Let's see any more specs. All right, so the weight, 530 grams. Okay, scratch-proof mirrors. Okay, 5 volts. Similar, straightforward. So let's unbox it and see what it is. So here's what you get in the box. You got the Hypercube Nano. You got your usual books and shit. Now, normally I would say plug it and file it to the side, but don't do that. You're going to want to read the book so you learn about all of the functionality. Comes with a stand, and you got the plug. All right, so here's your scratch-proof acrylic mirrors. Basically, this is an infinity mirror with customizable RGB lights. Now, I'm going to plug this in so you can get the full effect. All right, so I just plugged it in, and I also dimmed the lights so you could get the full effect. Now, before I turn it on, let me say this. If you watch my channel, you know one thing that I like is RGB lights. Y'all always hear me say hashtag RGB life. The Hypercube is the final boss of RGB products. Now, if you notice, it got a little cable. This is going to be a button. Watch when I turn this on. Check this out. Now, this is an infinity mirror. So that means any way you look at it, it's going to look the same. Now watch this. Let's go through some of the different patterns. Now, it's too many to show you in one demo, but it's a lot. Now, you can also have solid colors. And watch this. You can have it react to the music. How dope is this? This is kind of crazy. I look at that. This is dope. All right, so this is the Hypercube Nano. Now I'm going to show you the app and some of the functionality in a minute. I just want y'all to get the full effect of the hashtag RGB life. All right, so let's check out the Hypercube 10. All right, so for the Hypercube 10, that's going to run you 279 bucks. Here's what you get in the box. Usual books and shit. Now, if you want to just scan through, make sure you read how to use the button. You got your plugs. And this is going to be your control button. Here's the Hypercube 10. Now let me dim the lights again. All right, so I just plugged it in. Here's the multifunctional button. Let's power it up. Check this out. Now I'm trying not to sound too excited, but this is the kind of stuff that makes my nipples hard. I love RGB lights. Let's try some of the different patterns. Now remember, you got 95 total, so we can't go through all of them. But I'll just run through a few. Now let's change the mode. Okay, nice common lights. And my favorite, react to the music. Oh, this is sick. This is sick. All right, let me change that back. All right, bam. Look at. Now, when I take the lights all the way down, you're going to really enjoy this. Okay? But remember, infinity mirrors, you can look at from any angle. All right, so let's take a look at the Hypercube 15. All right, so here's the Hypercube 15. Now this one's gonna run you $454, and this one is kind of big. The dimensions are 15 by 15 by 15. Now inside the box, you got the book, the plug, and the button. So let's go ahead and power this up. Check out those lights. Now I want y'all to see, I'll move it around a little bit. Any angle, any direction. Now let me change some of the different modes. Okay, here's some of the patterns. Okay, let's do a different mode. And of course, reaction to the music or voice. This is so dope. I love this. All right, let me show you the stand. All right, so this is the Hyper stand. Now this is gonna run you $59. That's gonna fit the Hypercube 10 and 15. All right, so here's how they look on the stands. And on the side note, this video might not be doing it justice, but looking at these Hypercubes in person, they are mind-blowing. Now I'm gonna download the app so we can sync all three of them together. All right, so the app is pretty simple and straightforward. You got your power button, turn it on and off. You can set a timer. You have your sync button, so if you got multiple cubes, you can sync all of the colors together. You got your react speed and your network configuration. So here's my pattern modes. I got it on Kaleidoscope. Switch to meditate. Now for meditate, say we want to change the colors. Let's do red. We can do green. So this is a custom. Now I got a bunch of different palettes. Okay, there's chromatic. We got forest. Long list. Let's try Stellar Flare. And let's take it back to default. Now you also got more. You can change the brightness, the speed. Let's get maximum brightness. Okay. Maximum intensity. And we'll leave the speed the same. Let's go back to Kaleidoscope. And there it is. All right, so I'm going to play some music so you can see the lights in full glory. Now, on a side note, I'm not going to sync all three cubes together because I'm going to change the patterns on the middle cube while the other two cubes are dancing to the music. Here we go.
Yo, I got a question for you. How many times you knew I was checking for you? How many? Put it on the line, grab the weapon for you. Real. I was front line, I was repping for you. Trapper. Came by myself, I was stepping for you. Trapper. Turned the L to a lesson for you. Cash. Turned one night to a blessing for you. You ain't think I'd do something special for you. But I wouldn't do nothing special unless it's for you. And that's the thing about it. And I can't sleep at night when I think about it. These niggas think they got it, but I really got it. These niggas think they profit, but I really profit. I done left the town, got it really poppin'. These niggas window shot when I'm really copping. I'm from the city where niggas be milli rockin'. I might pull up in 650s with silly options. But what's the mathematics? Would you still stick around if I ain't have cabbage? Would you come to my shows if I rapped average? Except on my flaws and my bad habits. Heal all my wounds from the backstabbers. And never be someone who will backstab me. Never. Ready for that ride in the black caddy. My son, one son, tell him ask daddy. He'll be mad happy. But I'm just trying to chill and twist the line. Catch stunts in my 745. You drive me crazy, shorty. Just wanna see you and feel real. But if I post this little bitch on my close friends, you ask about it and I act like I got no sense. Spend on me, or would you spend for me? How deep is our love if that's what it takes for you to creep in the club? The shit beneath me, I still reach from above. The old me would've reached for the glove. I'm just playing, yo, you know what I'm saying. But oh no, when it's over, I just hope that you stand. Because girl, it's easy to love me now. You'll leave you crazy, would you love me if I was down and out? Would you still have love for me?
All right, so overall.
It's okay to drool when looking at this, just clean it up afterwards. It's one of the most beautiful cars ever created and a really fine collectible die-cast version of it, the 1962 Ferrari 250 GTO. which has seen some wear and tear throughout the years. Just ignore the license plate peeling off. This is from B. Borrego, or however you pronounce that, a 1/24th scale car, which is almost as awesome as the real thing. Well, about 1/24th as awesome as the real thing. As you can see, this car has already been in an accident, so some of the paint was chipped off. If you did that on the real 250 GTO, well, let's just say you wouldn't want to do that. Hey, look, the door's open, as you would expect on a car like this. It's not the General Lee, after all. Man, how awesome would the Dukes of Hazzard be if they drove a Ferrari 250 GTO? Well, probably no more awesome than it is with the orange Dodge Charger, but it certainly would have given the Duke boys a lot more class. I said class, not ass. They got plenty of that. Yeah, I'm recording on a Friday if you haven't figured it out by now. Just look at the detail on this car. It's incredible. As you probably noticed, it has real rubber tires, great looking wheels. It steers with the steering wheel. And there's even a lot of attention to detail on the underside. It's just a really nice collectible car that looks like someone took a shrink ray to the real thing. I mean, that's why you buy a 120 Jazz Transformer, but sadly it does not transform into anything. It just sits there, looking good, but you can also roll it around and have fun with it if you want. And look at the engine detail. Just incredible. I can't say anything that you don't see with your eyes right now. This car is getting a 10 out of 10. Even with these slightly misaligned and peeling stickers, it's an older car. I'm not sure how old. My dad actually got me this one not too long ago. He thought I would enjoy it, and I do. Because when the 250 GTO...
recognize the admission of Finland and Sweden to NATO, because we all know that, looking from an historical perspective, NATO members have brought their national issues to the...
First, some evolutionary changes from last year. Then Peugeot's flagship was the 505 STI. With that model, they improved the dash design and offered a new 4-speed automatic coupled to turbo 4-cylinder power to give the car broader appeal. Now, this is this year's Peugeot flagship, the 505 STX. But the STX doesn't replace the STI or any other 505 for that matter. In fact, there are so many 505 permutations that it's hard to keep track of them all. But there is one way: money. There's a $10,000 difference between the base 505 GL at $13,900 and our STX automatic at $23,800. So what's new for nearly 24 grand? For openers, V6 power. This 2.8-liter in the STX is also available in the STI. Either way, the 90-degree V6 produces 145 horsepower and 173 pound-feet of torque. Now that's just slightly more than the 2.2-liter Turbo 4. While this engine is new to the 505, we've seen its basics before in the ill-fated Peugeot 604. It's another variation on the engine that was jointly designed by Peugeot, Renault, and Volvo. Now this one has a port fuel injection system and upgraded internal parts. So why did Peugeot bother putting this engine in the car if it makes no more power than the turbo 4-cylinder? Well, for two good reasons. First, people who lay out over $20,000 for a car don't want 4-cylinder engines. Second, because of the way the V6 makes power. As soon as you pull away, you feel the power coming on, and then it builds evenly as you accelerate up to about 5,000 RPM. Good as the turbo is, it just can't make its power as evenly as a V6 can. Now, our V6 had another unexpected advantage. It was actually faster than the STI turbo we tested last year. The STX went through the quarter mile about 0.7 of a second quicker, at 17.7 seconds with a final speed of 78. 0 to 60 was quicker too, at 10.1 for the V6 compared to 11 seconds for the STI Turbo. Now both cars had the same 4-speed automatic. So the acceleration in the STX is just right for a car calling itself a sports sedan, and so is deceleration, thanks to the second major improvement, a Tevis-designed anti-skid brake system. It's standard on the STX. STXs and STIs also get this new wheel design that has less negative offset to give more stability. The end result is shorter stopping distances and a surer braking feel, better than we got with the last Mercedes-Benz we tested with an anti-lock brake system. The Peugeot distances averaged an amazingly short 93 feet. But while the 505 STX may stop better than most sports cars, it doesn't handle like one, unless you're thinking of some French sports cars. You can see the Gallic body lean here. But the steering is precise, and the car has a crisp overall feel. Once you get used to tipping towards the door handles and the turns, you find that the STX keeps a very good grip on the road. But most people will be more impressed with the 505's highway manners. It rides with the control and solidity you get in German cars, and with the comfort you find in larger American cars. And if you spend a lot of time watching the highway, the 505 STX gives you a comfortable front row seat. It's covered in soft leather, the kind that keeps you from sliding off. The driver's seat has 2 height adjustments and plenty of overall support for long trips. And for cold mornings, well, both front seats are electrically heated. The dash, which was new last year, has easy-to-reach controls and large buttons, but they're also electrically heated by the lights inside them, and we don't think it was intentional. Instrumentation is clear, and you get readouts for everything but voltage. There's plenty of storage room, too, with 2 glove boxes. New this year is an Alpine cassette stereo with anti-theft protection. The STX also gets central locking with a keyless entry system, though the one in our car didn't seem to work all the time. The 505 STX is EPA rated at 18 city, 22 highway. We got 20 on our mixed driving loop. Now that's a little low for a mid-size sedan these days. In addition, some of our staff members thought the 505 styling was beginning to look a bit dated, especially next to the newer Aero 4-door competition. So it's performance that topped our list of hits. The anti-skid brakes are outstanding. The engine is smooth and acceleration good. We also like the overall broader appeal of the newest 505. As for minuses, fuel mileage seems a little low, and the exterior styling needs a bit of updating. But Peugeot tells us the 505 may get that and more between now and 1990. They want to triple their sales in the U.S. by then. A generous 3-year, 36,000-mile whole car limited warranty and 5-year, 50,000-mile powertrain protection should help towards that goal. And dealers will soon be able to offer a factory warranty on their used Peugeots, similar to the plan Jaguar introduced last spring. With that kind of confidence, we decided to hold on to this STX for a long-term test. And we'll let you know how this product of evolution holds up over the next year and 20,000 plus miles of our revolutions.
This regional force being, deployed.
Platform of the alliance whenever any particular topic came to the agenda.
Let's to thank one of our sponsors, Farmers Insurance.
Somebody needs saving. Don't worry, citizen. I'm here to save.
Already saved.
Today?
Switched him to Farmers so he could save an average of $441 on his auto insurance.
Okay. I guess I'll go save the world or whatever.
If you need saving, get a quote from Farmers.